Previously on the Retronomicon.
I'm sure the Retronomicon had a hand in what happened that day, but having me blow it up with my mind would be too unrealistic a fate for Tomb Raider. No, the game simply stopped working entirely on any of my PlayStation systems. Oh, thank fuck for that. It was all just some shitty dream. What the fuck is Oh, fuck, no. Oh god, it's the shit.
Shitty games. Subscribe, fuckers. Too long I've been bound to this book. But with human form, now I possess even greater power. Besides, we have some unfinished business with you, Miss CROFT.
What happened? You. What have you done? What have you done? Answer me, damn it! Why can't I remember? LARA? LARA? What have they done to you? Hello everybody and welcome back to the Retronomicon. Today's topic is Tomb Raider, Angel of Darkness. Let's just do this. Right, so Angel of Darkness is the infamously bad 6th installment to the Tomb Raider series, once again developed by the original team at Core Design. As in, Core, just look at them sweatermelons. Ugh, forget I said that. However, the sentiment behind this crude joke that I also made in my Tomb Raider 1 videos has unfortunately never been more appropriate. Initial impressions of Lara's design from the box art and screenshots suggest that Core's main concern has been, once again, to sculpt their female heroine with gravity-defying jugzillas. This time, though, they've also put a lot of effort into making her ass pop like she's butt smuggling a couple of roast hams. As we let the game load and the cinematic starts, we get some story, yes, but also a very early gratuitous shot of her backside, stuffed into tight jeans that would make any lonely male gamer sweat. In short, they play up to Lara's sex appeal completely unashamedly. And this would be fine, honestly. if they put nearly as much effort into the actual fucking game. That said, at this early juncture, this cinematic is actually quite good, and seems to set up the plot very well. First impressions of the graphics are really good as well. Clearly, another focus here for the team was creating a truly cinematic gaming experience, so I at least hope they continue to deliver in that regard, at the very least. So, to summarise the plot at the start of the game, Laura is on the run after her mentor, Werner von Croy, mysteriously dies by gunshot during an argument. She is insistent she didn't do it, for the most part, but a few characters early on start to make you doubt your heroine, which I guess is a nice touch. Later on, you learn that there are some branching trees to the conversations you have with other characters, which may lead to different results sometimes, or hidden lines of dialogue that add more flavour. This whole mechanic doesn't really change much about the game though, as it still remains pretty linear in the tasks you complete, at least in what I played of the game. More on that later. Character animations, gestures and speech are fantastic for the time, and for now I don't have much negative to say about these cutscenes. Except for one, if the developers wanted to make these cutscenes as cinematic as possible, then why do they keep breaking the 180-degree rule? For clarity, this basic cinematic principle states that once space is established on the screen, the camera should not cross to the other side of the characters, otherwise it flips their positions and risks confusing the audience. Yeah, as a film graduate, this bugged me no end, but this is film theory, so I'm not going to hold it against them too much. Again, not much else to complain about at this point, and it's a bit nitpicky, so my bad. Before I get into what's wrong with the game, and believe me, that will take up 90% of this fucking thing, I'll sing the game one more praise, and that's the music. Compositions are fantastic. Just like every other Tomb Raider game I've played, the music doesn't disappoint in the slightest, and the opening music for the main game made me feel a real sense of excitement to play. It evokes the epic feeling of beginning a new adventure, and I just have to give the due props. Level music also continues to be on point with various vibes of different levels. Sometimes eerie, like in the graveyard and back alley sections, and sometimes full of action and crescendos for the big set pieces. The club music for me was also a right banger.
Oh yeah. That's the kind of music I want in a fucking video game.
Anyway, let's get into the gameplay. It can be quite honestly summed up in a couple of words. Fucking terrible. When I first started capturing the game, I honestly went in fairly optimistically. I knew that it was commercially and critically panned, yet I continued to tell myself that it couldn't be as bad as it was made out to be. I shit you not, 5 minutes, no more than 5 minutes into recording, and I completely understood what everyone was talking about. This game is a perfect example of what happens when developers throws a bunch of shit at a wall and hope it fucking sticks. For a start, the controls are like they've been copied and pasted from every previous installment, and once again use a grid-based system to how you move and interact with the environment. You could argue, don't fix what isn't broken, or they're trying to be true to the series that people love, but the reality is that you end up with one of the worst control schemes and gameplay physics of any game I've ever played on the PS2. In fact, remember my Barbie video, in which I titled the video "The Worst PS2 Game I've Ever Played"? There's a link up there in the corner if you haven't seen it. Well, this one might actually have to take that title. These controls and mechanics caused me no end of frustration, a level of boredom and resentment that I never thought possible before. So I'm going to show you how and why this game broke me by reviewing each shitty thing in sections. Here we go. Issue 1. Movement. I'll start with this one as it's a glaring issue with the game that becomes apparent as early as the opening tutorial section. Lara's instructions here make it clear that even though this is still a grid-based system of control, they wanted Lara to do actions more fluidly, which I know doesn't make a huge amount of sense, but bear with me here. So some things, like climbing through windows, require a press of the action button like in previous games, but with this one, they've tried to make it simpler by having the player simply tap the control stick towards an interactable piece of environment. The problem with that is that it's never very clear what you can and cannot interact with. You find yourself running into everything and tapping away to see what she grabs onto. The way she begins climbing animations and things can seem quite smooth, and if I played this back when I was released, I would have been very happy to see this much detail. In the long run though, all it seems to do is make the game feel even more clunky and sluggish than the previous games. Repeating climbing sections, for example, leaves you bored as fuck with the same ladder climbs, seemingly lasting a goddamn eternity. However, it's not until you combine these problems with the aforementioned grid-based system that you start to lose your frickin' mind. While I said that the game controls much like previous Tomb Raider games, one big change that they have made is getting rid of the tank-like controls, meaning you now move Lara by inputting directions relative to where the camera's positioned. Not sure I've explained that very well, but It's not like it fucking matters. The end results are extremely awkward, especially when certain areas, like small rooms, trigger a temporary fixed camera angle, which completely fucks with your head as you're trying to move about. The other awkward part about moving is that, regardless of what degree you tilt the control stick, Lara will always start with a walk that leads up to a run, making most platforming and scaling sections a real pain in the ass. Alright, so in my previous Tomb Raider videos, which I will be mentioning more and more from here on out, so please click that card up there in the corner if you want to see more of what I'm referring to. I had complaints with how something as simple as jumping from one platform to another was comparable to solving rocket launch equations, yet at least the system worked consistently and the controls allowed you to make the precise jumps presented. With Angel of Darkness, it's hard to predict a running start to a jump when you always have to start by walking. It's fucking ridiculous. With some, I want to say, foresight, the developers brought back the walk button, which allows you to toggle Lara into a fixed walking pace that, like the previous games, prevents her from walking off ledges. Hurrah, I hear you cheer. The developers could see the problem and put in a feature that would solve the issue. What's complete bullshit, however, is that while you're in this walking stance, the controls revert back to the tank controls mentioned earlier. So when you're trying to carefully line up a jump from a narrow path, for example, you have to keep toggling the walk stance on and off, because otherwise you can't turn and face the thing you're aiming for.
Okay. Whew. Glad I got that off my chest. Issue 2. Saving.
Here's another example of a problem that I had with the original Tomb Raider, that's made worse by the developers' attempts to fix it. And this one is so stupid, it blows my mind, and was also responsible for some of the most anger and frustration that I had during my time with the game. You see, Angel of Darkness did away with the save crystals of the first game's console release, and accepted that it's probably best to just do the PC thing, and allow the player to save at any point through the menu. Convenient, right?
No, not this time. Pure fiction.
The menu takes a while to appear, and then you have to scroll down to save, pick a slot or overwrite, wait, exit out the menu, and wait to be kicked back out into the game. Okay, I'm aware this isn't that big a deal in practice, and I'm sure you're probably thinking, calm down, Matt, it doesn't take that long and you're being a bit nitpicky. Well, shut up. There's a damn good reason to complain about this. Unlike previous games in the series I've looked at that give you a reminder or prompt to save at the end of a level, Angel of Wank Mess, however, gives you nothing. So when you're playing this game for the first time now, like I was, and considering it's a PS2 release capable of the feature, you might accidentally presume there's some kind of autosave that happens at the end of every level. But no, you're expected to save manually every single time. I made the mistake of not saving often enough, and I paid the fucking price. My first time playing, I died about an hour in and had to start all over again. Okay, alright, I accepted that. While dumb, it was pretty much my fault for not considering the lack of an autosave. But later, I went through a couple of puzzles, progressed to a new area, and finally arrived at the hideout of this fucking weirdo, who for some reason just bobs into frame during the cutscene, like he's just risen from the dead. God, I wish he was. Giant bloated prick. You see, when I got to this point, I thought, brilliant, hard part's over, I'll just talk to this guy and then save, because I can't have saved in a while, and I was presented with two dialogue options. Honestly, these options, as you can see here, are so similar that I didn't think much of it. One of them seems slightly more aggressive than the other, so I thought, let's go with that one. After all, I'm Lara Croft, a strong, independent woman that doesn't take no shit. Surely it shouldn't matter much. But then, suddenly, Lara's been shot dead by this fat fuck. How in the sweet shit was this allowed to happen? How? How in the sweet... How? It reminds me of that bit in the first Tomb Raider where you had to make a 50-50 guess as to which hole led to progress and not a giant metal spike up your ass. These scenarios are simply not fair. So besides being immensely frustrating, what's the consequence of this heinous bit of game design? Well, you become paranoid that you could die at any second or forget when the last time you saved was, so you start saving after every single sodding thing you do. And every single time you have to open the fucking menu, which takes a while to appear, and then you have to scroll down to save and pick a slot, overwrite, wait, exit the menu.
Issue 3. This game's shit. I mean, it's just terrible. It's just shit. Here's why.
While I described a fairly interesting and cinematically driven story earlier, the contradictory nature of what you do in the game versus the plot is maddening when you think about it. Lara is being framed for murder, like I said, and we are invited to subjectively judge for ourselves whether Lara is responsible, because she can't really remember. But you're running around fucking murdering people in the game like it's no big fucking deal. These are innocent Parisian police officers being gunned down while just doing their jobs, and Lara's like, no one is going to get in the way of me proving my innocence of murder. Not even murder! She's a fucking psycho. We already know she's guilty of murdering animals. She could have easily packed tranquilizers. Just saying, this game is no different. In the sewers, she blasts away these rats like fleshy balloons, and worst yet, murders cemetery guard dogs in cold blood without a single moment's hesitation. Daddy, what happened to the doggy? I'm sorry, son. I was working on a memorial, and while my back was turned, your dog was shot by an archaeologist. I didn't beat the game, so I don't know who murdered her mentor, but I'm convinced it was her. Angel of Darkness? Too fucking right. Begone, Beelzebub! Speaking of which, the game embraces its inner darkness and defaults to the darkest lighting you've ever fucking seen. I had to turn the brightness to pretty much max to make heads or tails of anything. This bit in the sewers here, it's impossible to see the vines on these walls to let you know they're there to climb to the platform above. It's only when Lara says, I can climb this, that you know that there's something there to even fucking climb. Another thing about this game that makes me want to throw myself off the top of a building is the quote-unquote progression system. When the game was being developed, it had a lot of ambition behind it, and so wanted the progression system to come from doing things in a less linear fashion. But when most of the plans were scrapped due to rushing the game out like a morning coffee poo, the game basically was left with lazy puzzles that consisted of Lara doing things like pushing boxes or breaking down doors in order to get a strength upgrade. Lara says, I feel stronger now. And it allows her to push, open or climb a particular object. That is, quite honestly, one of the most watered down, half-assed pieces of shit mechanics I've ever fucking seen. But what do I expect? What do I expect when you look at this game's shitty development cycle? The damage was done. Too much time and money had been spent to then remove these shitty things completely, leaving the game a glitchy mess of unfinished ideas that sucks more shit than two girls in a cup.
Well, go on, bid it.
Well, that thankfully is that. That's Tomb Raider, Angel of Darkness, and as hard as this game was to play and review for you guys, I'm glad I did, because I feel like I got some sense of closure with all the problems I have with the Tomb Raider series. Seeing how bad a Tomb Raider game can be. Tomb Raider 1's a fucking masterpiece. Anyway, as for grading, Angel of Darkness gets its own new unique retrograde of G for being a gross and greedy, gutless goof that's nothing but a series of grotesque, gaudy glitches. When a game is this bad though, it strengthens my resolve. I know exactly what to do with this one. Oh man, that felt good. The game was so shit. That felt good, man. That felt really fucking good.
Blowing things up again, are we, douche? Haven't done that in a while.
What's going on?
No, sleep now, douche. I've got something here we won't be needing anymore.